I am the Philosophical Bachelor, and today I want to discuss the cosmological chicken and egg question. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? The cosmological equivalent of this question is not whether the chicken or the egg came first, but whether it is the chicken/egg or nothing. The chicken and egg question already presupposes that there exists something, but at the cosmological level, the question is, in the beginning, was there something or nothing? Let us consider both cases, starting with how, in the beginning, there was nothing. But since in the now there is something, the ancient axiom of how from nothing can only come nothing must therefore be false. From nothing can, indeed must, come something. How can something come from nothing? What is nothing? Is nothing an absolute void, devoid of anything, including any possibility? Or is nothing the resultant of a thing after which the thing is removed, leaving nothing? But in any case, the latter will mean that in the beginning there was already something. So to return to this first scenario of how there was nothing in the beginning, we have to ask, in an absolute void of nothingness, should even the possibility of anything coming from this nothingness be excluded? If indeed all possibility of anything other than nothing has to be excluded, then the notion of an absolute void, devoid even of possibility, must be false, since there exists something in the now. So either in the beginning there is already something, or nothingness does not exclude possibility. But where would the possibility of anything arise from if there is nothing? This must mean that possibility must be inherent in nothingness in itself. Can this be? Since absolute nothingness does not quite exist in the now, to think about this, we have to turn to analogies, which are only more or less weak in aiding our understanding. For instance, a tabula rasa, a blank slate, is ripe with the possibility of being written on, and an empty space can be filled with stuff. But the tabula rasa requires a writer to write on it, while the stuff that is to fill the empty space requires the existence of the stuff to begin with, albeit somewhere else. If in the beginning there is nothing, then there is no writer and no stuff. But we are not talking about the existence already of stuff in this first scenario, since then in the beginning there is something. We are talking merely about whether nothingness allows for possibilities. Based on the analogies, it does, though the possibilities come from what is outside the tabula rasa, from what is outside the empty space. In the absolute void of the beginning, ex hypothesi, there is simply nothing. Hence, whatever thing, if it is to exist, must come from nothing. More precisely, it must come from the possibilities inherent in nothingness. Jean-Paul Sartre writes about an almost mystical desire within nothingness for something, what seems like a proto-consciousness already inherent in nothingness, that is the precursor of consciousness. But I want instead to consider a more naturalistic explanation, expanding on the above-mentioned idea of how nothing is the resultant of a thing after which the thing is removed, leaving nothing. But first, we have to discuss what is possibility vis-a-vis actuality. What becomes actual was first merely a possibility prior to its actualization. Perhaps it was a possibility with a higher probability, or perhaps not, since even the improbable, so long as it is possible, has the possibility of becoming actual. What is the ontology of the possibilities that finally did not become actual? Gilles Deleuze will call these virtualities. They exist virtually in the realm of ideas. In that way, they are real but not actual. Say one of the possibilities does become actual. That actualized possibility started out as virtual, which is already real, and became actual. Now we are ready for the explanation, which is in fact rather contemporary, borrowing from quantum mechanics. The reasoning of the explanation only requires that we accept the following. 1 minus 1 equals to 0. But let us reverse the equation. 0 equals to 1 minus 1. To be more clear, 0 equals to 1 plus minus 1, or 0 equals to 1 plus not 1. In the absolute void of nothingness, pairs of particles and their negations, their antiparticles, continuously come in and out of existence. Consider one of these pairs which comes into existence. Its components, particle A and particle not A, must come into existence simultaneously. In the resultant, A plus not A still equals to nothing. The pair vanishes back into the nothingness as the particles of A and not A mutually annihilate each other. This happens in most of the pairs. On rare occasions, a pair comes into existence, but in the brief instance of its existence, an event takes place that prevents the recombination and subsequent annihilation of its component particle and antiparticle. What can this event be? We can only speculate. For instance, another virtual pair, B and not B, arises in the space between A and not A, separating A and not A from one another. In a regular occurrence, B and not B then mutually annihilates, and A and not A mutually annihilates. But what if, between B and not B, arises yet another virtual pair, C and not C? And between C and not C arises D and not D, and so on, such that A and not A faces a wall of these virtual pairs between them, pushing them further apart until they lose their force of mutual attraction from the separation of distance. Another scenario is the arising of A and not A and B and not B. B and not B may not be inert towards A and not A. There is no reason why these virtual particles have to be all alike, so A may not be identical or even similar to B. Because of their dissimilarity, B may repel A, causing A to be further separated from not A. This situation is similar to the previous situation, basically an increasing separation between the particle and its associated antiparticle. When extrapolated, it results in a universe with two halves, one of particles and the other of antiparticles, with a border between them. This border is either marked by the continuous generation of pairs, further pushing apart the two halves, or is a line of recombination, where particles combine with their respective antiparticles, resulting in their annihilation, or a combination of both. These scenarios presuppose differing properties of the species of particles, but a non-reactivity between them. What if different particles can react with one another? B may react with A such that the compound cannot recombine with its constituent anti-counterparts, giving us AB, not A, and not B. We now have three things. Not A and not B cannot react with AB since AB is now a different species from A and from B. Remember that to recombine, A has to find not A, B has to find not B, and so on. The not A and not B that now exists may or may not form a compound not A, not B. If they do, not A, not B may not be the same as not AB. If it is not AB, not AB can recombine with AB, leaving us with a default situation of mutual annihilation, resulting in nothingness. Or they can meanwhile be separated by the arising of new pairs between them, leaving us with the previous situations. If not A not B is not the same as not AB, then there now exists AB and not A not B, which cannot recombine, since they are not the same species and anti-species. We now have two things. As these rare occasions that leave behind things compound over time, in all their permutations, they result in a world of things. Hence from nothing can come something. And indeed it must, if in the beginning there was nothing, since in the now there is something. What if in the beginning there was already something? To then speak even of beginnings will be misleading, since the theory would then mark a beginning only when something emerges from nothingness. Prior to it would then be the absolute void of nothingness, which will be the true beginning. Then in the beginning there was nothing. But what if in the beginning there was already something? Or more precisely, there's always been something, and to speak of beginnings does not make sense. The idea of having to begin with nothing is just a prejudice of induction we have developed from our experience, which has a background of in fact pre-existing things. There was no baby, then copulation happened between two people, and then a baby was born. No baby, and then a baby. There was no car, and then we went out and bought one, and now we have a car. No car, and then a car. But that is of course ignoring that the parents and the drivers that pre-exist their baby and car respectively. The parents were themselves begotten by their parents, and their parents by their parents, and so on. Tracing the lineage back, we will arrive at the originary parents. Let's call them Adam and Eve, merely out of familiarity. And where did Adam and Eve come from? The Abrahamic monotheists attribute creation to God, Aristotle to the unmoved mover, and Plotinus to the demiurge, which emanated from the One. In all such cases, there was an originary force, substance, or being that has always existed. But we do not even need the God thesis. The theory of the Big Bang tells us that all the matter in the universe was, at the start, concentrated in a singularity, a point of infinite denseness and heat. All the matter in the universe was already in existence, and in fact has always existed. We already have all the ingredients that finally lead to the world of today. In conclusion, either in the beginning there was nothing out of which arise things, or there has always been something which are the basis of the things of today. The difficulty of the former is the need for something to come from nothing, while the difficulty of the latter is to accept that something must always have been there being no further origin to refer to. We cannot then ask where that thing came from, since it did not come from anywhere but had simply always been there. Both theories have scientific basis, the former quantum mechanics, the latter the theory of the Big Bang. Both have supporting evidence. For the former, antimatter does exist in our material world, while for the latter, we observe cosmic background radiation, a remnant theorized by the theory of the Big Bang. The former considers nothingness as more fundamental, more primeval than something, while the latter considers being or substance as more fundamental, more primeval. Just as the chicken and egg question finds no answer, the something or nothing question of the origination of the universe also cannot be resolved. But there is no need for disappointment. The common intuition is to reject one or the other case outright. Something cannot possibly come from nothing, or there cannot possibly be something always already existing. The significance of this essay is to explain how both cases are instead plausible. Thank you for listening to the Philosophical Bachelor.